So, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the podcast. Reaching across the pond again. So many amazing UK artists that I've had the privilege of talking with, and them coming and sharing their story. Today, no exception. Pale Blue Eyes, out of Sheffield, the UK, out of United Kingdom, and they're coming in. This is a great alternative dream pop. I'd throw shoegaze, synth pop in there as well. Just a beautiful arrangement of sounds and vocals. Sure to satisfy any weekend listener. You know, you got some time on your hands, you want to kick back on the couch, have a beer, coffee, and listen to this record. It will do some special stuff for you. So thanks, guys. I have Matt and Lucy here from Pale Blue Eyes. I've been looking forward to this chat. How are you guys doing today?
Great. Yeah, we've just literally come back from the UK leg of our tour. So I just had a nap in front of the football actually before we came on.
There we go. That's the best,
Felt like
eh? Sports kind of in the background, a little snoozy.
It always sends me off. Like I'm like, right, I've got to stay up and watch this football match or whatever it is, and like it just sends me.
There you go. It brings you to a better place, maybe.
Yeah.
So Matt, how did that go? How did the reception go on the road? How did things go? What was your reception? How give us a little describer of all of that.
We had so much fun, and I think we're very like we're just like we're missing the guys already. I just made a round of teas for everyone, and there's only two of us left in the house. So one of those, like we're very, very lucky to be on the road with our best mates, and that like runs throughout the whole camp. And we had an amazing team around us. The gigs were really fun. Visited some places that we've been before. Finished up in the Islington Assembly Hall in London, which was like our biggest UK kind of venue to date. So that was a really amazing way to finish off the tour. But yeah, it's been a lovely couple of weeks. We did a Made a Veil session right at the beginning on Six Music for Riley and Co. So we started there and then in London. So yeah, it's been an amazing couple of weeks.
Well, and Lucy, do you have any fun stories you can tell us about that time on tour of weird situations, a funny story, a chance encounter? Did anything out of the ordinary happen other than just all the fun?
Let me think. I mean, we nearly missed one of the gigs because the traffic was so bad, but that was less funny and more stressful.
Right. Your sister's birthday?
It was my sister's. It was the night before my sister's birthday for Islington, so we had a good posse at the last show, drinking prosecco backstage. So that was quite a treat to finish off on a high. I don't know, really. It's been just consistently fun all the way through, and I think I can't really think of any funny stories. I mean we're literally entertained 24/7 by our bass player Aubrey. He's absolutely hilarious and like has so much energy that like when we come home and he goes home, it just seems so quiet.
Right. It's always good to have one of those in the band, eh? One of those members that just kind of free play and prologue, monologue a lot of the time.
Yeah, like we definitely take advantage of the fun opportunities, and it is like since we did that really long European tour, the driving 2-3 hours now just seems like you're going to the local shops because we were doing quite long drives around Europe, and like this was so I think we've just like we kind of know UK touring now, so we know when we can let our hair down a bit, and we definitely like a really fun adventure on this one. But I think just playing the music is and playing the show is the big thing for us. So and everything is, you know, because we're such good mates, everything is just like one big party, really.
Do you find that as the tour goes on, the songs change a little bit, new flavors are brought in, or do you try to maintain them as they are?
I think it does naturally happen. I think often that people often say about how they wish that you could record an album, tour it for a year, and then record it again.
Right.
Because it's like when you record, it's a really good way of sort of imprinting things and like locking things in. So then you go into playing it live with a certain kind of, I don't know, there's like a deep kind of knowing of the songs. You know them so well that it's just, you don't even think when you're playing them. But then in playing them live, like you say, they just naturally evolve. And I think then by the end of, like, just little subtleties creep in, like things that I do when I'm drumming, that I just start accenting certain things, or like me and Aubrey will just do something together that will just become a thing we do every night. And then at the end of it, you think, God, I wish we could record it again like that. But it just takes on a new version of it, I suppose.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the saturation too is, as you mentioned, of just putting a record out. I mean, you hear every little detail and everything so focused on that it must be. Is it hard to unshackle yourself from the master, from the originals? Like, is that a task to do, or does it come, like you were mentioning, Lucy, that you find little moments to add things in?
We rehearsed them quite a lot before. We rehearsed the whole album, and generally we'll like feel them out in the room. And if there's a song that doesn't kind of translate live, we just won't we won't really play it. So I think at the moment these are the ones that like fell under our fingers or felt the most kind of natural. A couple of them took a little bit more work to recreate live. Like the Dreamer was one that we had to work on the feel of that quite heavily for it to translate, and that comes down to like the right guitar tones and the arrangement live. But I mean, you know, when we're recording, sometimes there can be like 10 or 11 guitar takes that make it into a mix, and they're just like panned, or they come in and out, different tones, different kind of dynamics. So then it's about pinpointing like which two guitar parts we would take and how they interact. So certainly that was like a trickier one, but the more we play it, the more it beds in. And we decided to play quite a lot of new ones on this tour. Like we've done over 50% of new material, and then the rest from the first two records. So the first like couple of nights, I didn't like, usually I would kind of worry, but they felt quite naturally bedded in from day one. And then they just get a little bit tighter, and you stop thinking about your part and more about the performance at that point. But yeah, there's definitely been a bit of rehearsal time like invested in.
How much, Matt, do you do of rehearsal, like before you head out on tour, to kind of like, all right, you're going to do this, I'll do this. Okay. And like, how many days do you spend doing that?
Like quite a lot, because Lewis, the fourth member live player, Lewis Kellett, who joined probably about a year ago now, for live shows, we do so generally what would happen is he would come over, and Lucy, me and Lewis would go through the multi-tracks and work out exactly like what guitar parts we should take, and what, because he plays organ and synthesizer as well. And we would arrange that like in advance, and then Orbs would come in and we'll do a like fairly consistent and regular rehearsals in the lead up. So yeah, we do put a lot of time into that, because it's loads of fun as well. Like we just
for sure
enjoy that side of it.
I see too, like with so many guitars too, like you're having to, like, you can't have 20 guitarists up on stage, right? It's just,
I mean, I'd love that, but
right. Totally.
But, you know, we can't afford a bigger van, so it's two of us.
You'd have to get like a U-Haul, or passenger van, or some bus or something. And Lucy, tell me how it all started. Like, how did Pale Blue Eyes come to be? What's your origin story, if you could share that with us?
It is sort of funny in a way, because me and Matt have always played music together in different projects, and Matt's had various projects over the years, and then I kind of joined a previous band as the drummer, and at the end there was a sort of period of time where one project had finished, and I suppose out of that grew like Pale Blue Eyes. But we were down at Start Point with our friend, our friend Chris had a studio down at Start Point in Devon, and we went down there to do some demoing of some new track ideas. I think we'd got some PRS funding, so we could afford to do a few days in a studio, like mixed rates kind of thing. And we said we kind of knew Aubrey from Totnes as like a photographer, because he'd been taking pictures at Sea Change Festival, which we'd been playing at and working at. So anyway, he came down to Start Point with us to kind of take photos of that. And the guy who was meant to come down to play bass for the session actually just overslept and was ringing us going, I'm so sorry, I'm still in London, so I'll be like 4 or 5 hours. And we were like, okay, well, that's kind of like half the day gone. So we just sort of said, look, don't worry, I think you've kind of missed the day. So Aubrey was like, well, I've started learning bass recently. Like, I'll have a go at like just putting some root notes in or whatever. And he literally had never heard the stuff before and just joined in with, I don't know, maybe 6 tracks we were demoing, and just immediately was like absolutely nailing it and playing it perfectly. And me and Matt were just a bit like, hey, hang on a sec, this is right. So then we started rehearsing together, and we actually, ironically, were rehearsing without any gigs booked, any plans made.
We didn't have like a band name. None of those songs that we demoed in that start point session ever really came to light. That was just like a way in. And we rehearsed for like 6 months, all these different tunes, and like started demoing and tracking stuff without really any idea what we were doing. Like,
there were no gigs or anything. There was no plan. Right. But then in just doing that, I think, well, me and Matt sort of eventually had found ourselves where we were in a position where we kind of had an album's worth of stuff. It kind of, but Aubrey was at uni then. So I think it's quite a lot of the sort of writing and producing was us, but Aubrey was just well up for getting in a rehearsal room and playing all this live. So we started doing that. And then I think we only had a handful of gigs before lockdown and COVID happened. So actually, in a weird way, we were it was a very new project, and we had no material online. We'd done maybe like 6 gigs or something. And then it was just this weird phenomena over lockdown where we put a single out, and I remember it going nuts on Bandcamp. We did a limited 7-inch, and everyone just ordered it straight away, because I don't know, because it was lockdown, people were getting a lot of joy out of listening to records at home. And I remember that was kind of a really exciting contrast to the fact that COVID was a nightmare and our personal situation wasn't that easy at that time, but we had this kind of little beacon of pale blue eye,
the light at the end of the tunnel a bit. Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's cool. And do you guys write collaboratively, or like how do Pale Blue Eyes approach songwriting? What's your process in that? Like, do you get a line in your head first, or is it a series of lyrics, or is it a combo of each? Can you walk us through a little bit of how does a song come to be in Pale Blue Eyes?
Could be any one of those things that you've just described, but usually the way it works, because I'm writing all the time and I'm kind of noting things down in books, or like, you know, if there's a particular lived experience, or a thing that I see, or like a series of words that sound all right, that I'll note it all down and just kind of like keep it somewhere. And I generally like approach it whenever I've got like a free few days, because it always takes me a day to kind of like get my head into it and to find some kind of like way in or a flow. And then I'll just generate as many ideas as I possibly can all the time, and then bring them to Lucy and Aubrey, and then Lucy kind of hacks away at it and produces it a bit and works on structure. And we're not like that precious at the early stage, other than like if it feels good instinctively, then we'll continue working with it. But if there's like out of 10 songs that I write, often there'll be 1 or 2 that will carry forward. So my way in is always just to not dwell on it, like write a song, write an idea. If there's a kind of like concept and feel around it, then that kind of is enough as a starting point. And then like the lyrics can develop over months, and, you know, right up until I'm doing the final lead vocal, I could be rewriting lyrics and words and rearranging things. So it's in that sense, it's like pretty organic, and it develops over time. A few songs just fall out, like now and again. On this record, I wrote like when we were surrounded by boxes moving out of our family home, and the only thing, like, bit of a cliche, but the only thing that was left was the acoustic guitar, and I just like picked it up and looked out the window and wrote that song. That was really easy. It just kind of happened. And then other songs on this record, I've written like a structure of a song, and then we've brought into the studio and as a band performed it live. Sang like a guide vocal and then re-sung the vocal at the end.
Yeah, and then there's some that are more like, when I think of Half Light from the album, that started off as one thing. It started off as a very kind of indie rock sounding track. And I remember just having a bit of an epiphany where I was like, hang on, I could pull all this stuff out and put loads of synths in. And it kind of turned it on its head. And we added this whole like 2 or 3 minutes at the end where it was just a synth like mash out. And that was more of like a construction thing where we kind of built that. Whereas scrolling and rituals were like, we all, like Matt says, we all got together for a few days over summer and actually recorded those with Tom and Lewis. So there's like actually a couple of extra players adding different kind of new flavors. But I think this album is the first time where we did experiment a bit more with different ways of writing, because I remember before we had our studio space up and running, me and Matt set up 2 setups. We had a setup in our spare room and then a setup in our bedroom for me that was like synths and a sound card, and then yours was more like microphone, guitars. And we tried really hard to see if we could flip it on its head, and if I could come up with any like chord progressions that Matt then put lyrics to. And I think I did loads of stuff that didn't come to anything, but I think there's like one track
7
on
years
there.
Did though, didn't it?
Yeah, so I think through that process of saying let's try another way in, because like we've done 3 albums where Matt's written like in that way, and then we've produced it, and then we'll send stuff to Aubrey remotely because it was lockdown. So I think this time around it was really fun to have. We've written that album, the latest album, in like 3 or 4 different kind of ways, if you see what I mean. So I think it's I find that we've found a few different gears, hopefully, just because we've tried a few different ways in, and obviously we'll continue to try and do that as well.
It kind of keeps it creative and interesting for like us. And like we also had friend of ours, Tom Sharkett, who's a producer, composer, writer, performer. He came in and did some stuff as well. So it was really nice to have other people in the room, because obviously the record we made over lockdown was us just walking up to the studio in the morning, and it was like amazingly creative time, even though it was a difficult time, where we made it just the 2 of us initially. So to branch out and do it in this way, I think we want to explore that more for the next record.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I was going to ask too, like, have you found that over the records that process is getting easier, and is it changing? Is it influencing how you go about songwriting? Like, are you getting closer to, I guess, like I don't like saying formula, but it's kind of like a structure that we like, like we've chiseled this out, and this kind of style really works of how we go through our process. Have you come more to that? And if so, has that changed the sound of your records over the 3 records that you've put out?
I definitely feel there's like a default process that I can go to, but there's like a writing everyday thing. And then it's kind of like working out what would make that song the best song it could be, whether it would be like band playing in room, or if it depends on the context of the song and like what suited to. But I definitely feel like one thing that we do is like take the pressure off now a little bit, because it will happen when it happens, and there's a little natural break from writing over the last like couple of months, and I'm definitely feeling like inspired to want to do it again. But I think it's just always, even if it's not like you're not reinventing the wheel, but you're just finding like a unique way for yourself to come back into it. I think that's probably as exciting as like knowing my default method, because I could probably write another record like that again, but I don't want to. So if I've got that at the back of my mind, at least, even if it comes out like I'm thinking like I want to try something different every time. I at least do my bit.
Sure. And Matt, how do you push yourself to do that? Like, how do you because I mean, I wrote songs too in the past, and you do get a kind of a structure or kind of a style. And I remember when I'm like, okay, I'm doing this style too much. I want to try to, and I would try weird things, like just playing around with sound files or outside soundscape, stuff like that, just to kind of get inspired. How do you go about, like, how your other songs have sounded? How do you go about seeing if you can tweak them a little bit or approach them in a different way? Or what's your process with that?
That kind of thinking, like what you're saying, is how I'd approach it. Like maybe found sound might even start a song. It might start the song, but it might end up being like a standard pop structure. Right. I think it's just like, not like tricking your mind into doing something different, but just like, at least if you kind of approach, like, so for instance, I don't really play the piano very well, so my next target will be to learn the piano and write a song on an organ piano rather than just going to the guitar, or finding like a way, or starting with just the voice and like layering up vocals. And then I think the collaborative process is exciting as well, because I'll give it to Luce and then it will end up being a different thing, and then we'll bring it to the room and it will be a different thing again. So I think the bit that I enjoy the most is like, if I write a core song, then dynamically and structurally it could change by the time it's like performed together in the room, because then it's different personalities as well. And I think this is why PB works, because there are really interesting dynamic personalities within the group.
Right. And Lucy, when do you know Matt is onto a song? Like, how do you receive it and know that, okay, this has legs to it? Like, what does it need to have in it that sparks, yeah, this is a Pale Blue Eyes song? Thanks, Matt. let's play with it now.
Yeah, let's go. I try really hard to just trust my gut with that. And I think through years and years and years of working together, and years of listening to so much music, and I think that's the thing, is you assimilate, don't you, constantly. Every time you hear something that you go, hang on, what is it about this track that I love? Each time it's like, as a musician, I think you're kind of filing everything and going, I love that guitar tone on that Durutti column track, or I love that ML Book record. And you're constantly filing those like tones and sounds. And then I think, and then you kind of pull all of that into what you're trying to do. And I think if I have that, for me, it's like, if I listen to a demo Matt's done and I have that same reaction as I do to any track, then I kind of know that I like it and I'm onto something, even if it's just me that likes it.
Right.
Like, I think you have to trust that mentality in a way of
love that.
what something is drawing you to it. And then especially if we bring it to Aubrey and the same thing happens again, and this time was particularly good for that, I thought. On the latest record, we all landed on the same ones as our favourites, which was a really interesting sign, where we all met in this place musically, because Aubrey's got totally different taste to us as well. So it's quite interesting, because me and Matt really bonded over music like very early on in our relationship. I remember seeing he had like a wall in his bedroom of CDs, and I just used to be like, oh my God, Broken Social Scene, Sea Power, Slow Down, like, and we kind of bonded over all of those same things that we had in common. Whereas Aubrey comes from like a disco, soul, R&B, jazz kind of background. So it's like really interesting when it all crosses over.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. It sounds too like your band is really, you're in flow right now. Like, you all understand what each member brings, and when you come together, it's magical. You know, it just starts to happen, like understanding one another.
It does feel like that. And I think through, again, as you get older and you have more experiences and stuff, I think you realize things that you don't take for granted. And like, we know that we're lucky to have met these people, and we know that we're lucky that we all bring a different bit to it. And I think bands can kind of implode and go wrong when someone thinks that they're it. And like, I like the fact that everyone brings something different, and no one's got the like ego of being like, this is my thing.
This is how I wrote it. This is how it gets played. Like, I totally hear you on that. And I mean, I've talked to many bands, and that's tends to be the contentious, when one person is trying to be the band's me, you know, rather than a collective of different experiences coming together. Very interesting. This has been really fascinating, guys. And I have one last question to kind of wrap things up here. How have you felt the reception has been of the latest release that you guys put out, New Place? How do you find the reaction has been with all that work and all of the, you know, I mean, it's no small task to put a record out. You've done it 3 times. How have you found this one's been received? Like,
it's basically a privilege that to be able to play music anyway. So the fact that people can like support us and it's well enough received that we could potentially make another record is basically like we're living the dream. So I can only say thanks to everyone that's come to our gigs and bought our records and that chats to us at the merch table afterwards, because it is like, it's basically our social life as well as our job. And if we weren't in a band, we'd be going to watch gigs. So
Right.
yeah, we're really pleased, and I think we've been as honest as we possibly can be on this record, and we've put it out on our own label. So it's been like a bit more graft in terms of like getting that side of things done. But yeah, feeling really pleased, and
Awesome.
the tour's been really fun. So
Yeah.
really
And the rest of 2025, what could, your fans or future fans, what can they expect out of Pale Blue Eyes?
So we've got a few more little releases coming out, which will be announced soon, like a limited single and some stuff which I can't like completely announce now until
Right.
it goes out. But a few little bits and bobs, and then
Cool.
we're doing like another European mega tour opening for the midnight around some unbelievable venues around Europe, which will be an amazing experience. So yeah, we've got that, and then a few UK festivals which are yet to be announced. So yeah, just leading up to that.
Busy. You're getting busy. You're gonna get busy.
Not crazy busy.
Right.
It's a nice amount of busy.
Nice. It's a nice
There was a
Manageable. Right.
period where we couldn't quite catch up with ourselves because we just felt like we were continuously in our little Berlingo driving to gig after gig after gig. And I think we had to do that. We had to say yes to everything in tour loads and gig loads. But this year feels a bit more of a, I mean, other than what Matt's labelled as the mega tour in September, October, that is going to be a mega tour. That's like 20 dates, I think. It's similar in scale to the Slow Dive tour. And
we're
similar
actually
venues.
going out, I think, about a week before to do our own headline shows, and then we join up with the support leg in Helsinki. So we start in Poland and work across from Poland to Helsinki, and then we're away.
Like
22 dates from there.
Amazing.
So
just think of all the great stories and songs that will
hopefully
percolate out of that. I mean, what an experience. I totally see, like, I see you guys as having the moxie to get out there and do it, and I really just sending all the best to you guys. Excellent record. I wish I could see you guys on tour. Maybe eventually down the road you'll make your way over to North America. I'll be waiting. But an excellent record. Just such a from start to finish, just it flows so nicely, and it's powerful. And I really been enjoying it. I thank you guys again too for joining me today. It's been really nice to chat with you guys. I love talking about your process and how songs come together and bands evolve, and you've really enlightened us on a lot of things about Pale Blue Eyes. So thank you for that.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Great time. All the best. Good luck on your tours in 2025. And when your next record comes out, we'll be sure to have you back on. We'll talk about it.
Real. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thanks
guys.